Thank you, James, for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit, kind of hear a little bit more about your background. I feel like you're always a very charismatic and encouraging creature of sorts. So I want to hear more about what makes you tick, how you got into this, kind of what your plans are for the future and how you relate to your clientele. Just give me the full sitch on where you came from and why you like doing what you do.
Cool. Let's see. I feel like the helpful place to start is when I was in school, I was at Auburn, studying mechanical engineering, and let's see, I took a semester. So first of all, I love God. Like Jesus has defined who I am to a great extent, and kind of just the way that knowing God has impacted my life in every possible way has always been kind of what's most important to me. And so can I give that to as many people in the world as possible? What that looks like has changed a lot over the years in terms of what I feel like is most beneficial to share with the world. And, everybody's different, so everybody needs something different. And so I think I've matured in that way a lot. I bet most people do. But yeah, that was kind of always driving, like, what do I want my life to be about? And I studied mechanical engineering just because, honestly, it was the recommendation that came out of one of those tests you do in high school, like, what are you best suited for based on, like, how your brain works.
So educators thought you had an affinity for that?
Yeah.
So they kind of encourage you to continue down that path?
And it had a lot, like, that's the engineering discipline that has the most amount of options. You can go in, the largest number of places with it. So, and I enjoyed math and all the stuff. So it was good for me to study. I really enjoyed it. I love physics and all the different kinds of math I got into, and the practical applications of it. So yeah, it was great. So I just jumped into that, and let's see. I did an internship with a ministry in Atlanta called Nightlight because I began to think one of the things that gets me most excited when it comes to the God conversation is the general concept of being a light in the darkness. And so I've always been drawn to, like, some of the darkest things you can find. That sounds weird, but yeah. And one of the things that really kind of drew me in was just the whole thing going on in the world with human trafficking and taking advantage of, people who are available to be taken advantage of. And that is very complex. As soon as you start learning about that, it like, there's rabbit trails all over the place. But that idea in general really attracted me to, maybe this is something I could spend a decent amount of my life helping people and serving people. So I found myself, a friend was with this ministry in Atlanta called Nightlight. They were focused on ministering to men and women in the sex industry, in the roughest parts of Atlanta, where there's a lot of prostitution and a lot of trafficking and a lot of strip clubs. And so I spent a semester just kind of following them around and seeing how I can help and just being a part of the amazing stuff they were doing. And also kind of began to dream about maybe engineering is not what's best for me. Maybe I can create something like this somewhere in the world where it's not. But what can I get out of the remaining few years I have left on this? I got academic scholarship, so I wanted to get something out of it. So I'm like, I will be a counselor. I will, leave with that skill set. So for just a second, I switched my major to human development and family studies, I think is what it's called. And that was where I was at when I went over to Atlanta first.
That is a massive change in major.
Yep. One of the funny ways is that engineering, like you'd be in your class and you look around and you see 1 to 2 females. And in the human development and family studies, you look around like in a huge auditorium and you would see one other dude. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, that's a strange change.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I only did that for 2 semesters because when I was taking that time to intern with that ministry, I kind of came away with a bunch of awesome, powerful realizations for myself in my life. One of them being that I am not the person to help really most any females who have been objectified and taken advantage of. Like, that's best for a female to do. And so I had this savior complex that I had to let go of. But what I am called to do is be an incredible father and husband and just man in as much of society as I can be. And that is the most fundamental difference I can make. And so it's not crazy, romantic or insanely adventurous, or impressive. It's just getting into the world and just being a really good person and encouraging as many other dads and husbands to do that. So from being in that crazy dark place, that was kind of my biggest takeaway of what I'm called to do on a daily basis to combat that. It's just to be a really awesome husband and dad. So,
yeah, well, which is simple yet powerful. People don't spend a whole lot of time talking about that now in the modern context. So I think that that's good, because you've heard a lot of people talk recently about how men respond well to responsibility. And what you're talking about is a heavy amount of responsibility, a lot more than it sounds at a surface level. So I think that's exciting. And your kind of path to arrive at that calling was you making seems like a successive amount of personal decisions that were relative to your passions. You kind of graduated away from what was recommended to you and started gravitating toward what you recommended for yourself and acting on that. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and also actually being with the people that I wanted to help,
kind of made,
and learning what it actually looks like to help. You have this romantic savior complex oftentimes of how I can help all these people, and really it looks like something else sometimes. So
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You're kind of grounded by reality, but I like what you said before about what you feel like you can and can't do. And there's certain things you had to let go of, and you had to trust in other people to deliver on that. So what happened after college?
Yeah.
And how did it eventually arrive at what you do now?
Yeah, it was before that. So I left that semester with that ministry, having that realization of what I really need to do, at least on a daily basis. And then 2, I was like, I really need to do what I'm good at. I need to do what I'm best suited to do at the highest level possible. And through that, I'll definitely find, the path I'm supposed to be on. So I actually went back to engineering from all that, and
I did not expect that.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to go back to that and crush it as much as I can. So that was just a surprising how I came back from that time. I'm actually going to go back to very much the path I was on and just be as awesome a person as I can be while I'm doing it.
Interesting. Okay.
Believing in God and following, those principles and examples and everything. So
it sounds like a realization that you can do whatever you want, however you want. You can make the impact. You can be a disciple. You can be a helper. You can be all of those things regardless of the field that you happen to study in or work in.
Totally.
And sometimes I feel like people in their youth don't capture that. They feel like I have to be in a specific field to act or influence in a certain way.
Or you feel like it's your title. It's your
title.
It's your position. It's the badge you put on when that is not the case. The most significant influence you have is in your house, with your wife and your kids. And from there, your influence is going to trickle out into the world. And so you got to take seriously what is your most significant influence. And then once you've taken that seriously, you can consider who else in the world am I called to have influence on. So, everybody has that available. Yeah.
Interesting. So I feel like it came full circle while you were still studying with a lot of those things. So what was your career path like toward the end of your college days?
Yeah. All right. So
and right afterward.
So I met my wife doing that in Atlanta.
Okay.
So the joke that she hates for me to make is that we met on the way to a strip club, which is definitely true. We met on a Friday night before
true
we
in
were
action,
going out to Atlanta.
The intent that somebody could
but
gather is different.
Yeah. So that's how we met. Got married fairly quickly, and our vision for life was probably that we were going to spend almost all of our time just doing, like telling people about God and Jesus and how they can, have an awesome life through believing in Him, and found ourselves along a very, very typical American middle class trajectory of just getting my first job here in Birmingham, buying our first house, and about 3 years into that, I'm like, all right, we're just like doing this normal life thing, and I know that that's okay, but I imagined, again, still holding on to that like really adventurous romantic idea of we're going to be traveling the world and we're going to be living in very impoverished third world places and just helping people in every way possible. And I'm just an engineer in Birmingham.
So it's like a lack of adventure, like you're unsatisfied kind of.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Still, very fulfilled. And we had our first daughter and then our second daughter. But one of the things I held on to was this idea of being a business owner who can fund that kind of lifestyle through business. But I didn't know anything about business. I got an engineering degree. I was a great employee. And I could just be given a task and do it. And so that was my professional experience. So, let's see. But that was kind of in the back of my head. Like whenever I do find a business opportunity that can fund this life that we want to live, which is having complete flexibility, really to spend your time on people that have nothing to give back to you, and really to spend your time doing things that don't make any money, just serving people and helping people and loving people, which you can do at your job. You don't have to have financial freedom to do that. So that's my underlying like thought process. That's what I'm keeping an eye out for. And I think you'll hear a lot of real estate people say, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read it?
Yeah, I was just talking about it last night. Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah.
So a lot of people cite that book as something that really changed the trajectory of their life. So I read that, and all of a sudden, like I understood the difference between just being on the employee path and taking the business owner investor route and what that can offer to your life. So, and also, they make it pretty clear in that book that real estate is a great opportunity to do that. So I learned about, the first thing I learned about was, just rental properties, simply that they offer, a lot of leverage, a lot of passive income if you do it right. And so I began to realize that could definitely result in us being able to spend our time doing things that don't make any money and working with people and serving people that have nothing to give in return. So that attracted me just to rental properties in general. And then I also learned about one way to get into real estate and begin making some money without a lot of resources, or unfortunately even very much knowledge, is wholesaling. And so
which that is a interesting concept that confuses a lot of people.
Yeah. So I did that. So I actually quit the engineering job I had because I had done a wholesale assignment contract transaction just like on some lunch breaks. I found an opportunity in my neighborhood. I had already talked with a investor who had a very simple buy box and made that connection and put the deal together and made, I think, like around $3,000 in, like literally on my lunch breaks, while I was an engineer at Altec. So that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, give you a little spark.
That dollar per hour was something I had never thought was possible. So I was like, I could do this all day, every day. I can definitely.
What if I do just this?
Yeah, it's literally. I was like, that was so simple. The blocks and the building blocks in that were so straightforward. I can definitely replicate this. And if I wasn't doing the engineering work, how much could I crush it just simply doing this? It's a no-brainer. And my wife was like, go for it. If that's,
were you surprised by that when she said that?
Yeah. Well, she surprises me often. So, I was, actually kind of like, I ran it by a few people that I respected. I didn't run it by enough people, but I got a lot of like, go for it. And then, she's a stay-at-home mom. We have 2 little kids, and I'm it, like, in terms of income.
Right. That's interesting.
So I'm talking with her about it, and she says, like, I still remember this was, I guess 2014, maybe 2015. And she said, I am not afraid of not having money.
And you're like, okay, buckle up then.
I was like, and I kind of am. But she was very encouraging. And so, yeah, I just went for it. Just turned in my 2 weeks notice, and I was like, I'm going to do this wholesaling thing. And I failed utterly and completely. I got distracted. I didn't know anything about business, about being a business owner and having a strategy and having an operating expense budget and how to protect your time and do the most important things first. And I knew nothing.
Now,
so
did you hold your license at a place that specialized in wholesaling?
You don't need a real estate license to.
Okay,
to
so
do
you
wholesaling.
were. I got it. You were buying and selling, but you were not a licensed real estate agent.
So the goal was simply to find motivated sellers.
I see.
And have end buyers, just 1 or 2.
So I've seen people do this. I have seen people operate in the wholesale space, some as licensed real estate agents, others as not licensed real estate agents. I've seen companies that specialize in the, I guess, wholesaling space, for lack of a better phrase. But I've noticed a lot of people going in and out of it. Like every now and then somebody will capture a wholesale opportunity only, to reference Robert Kiyosaki again, if you can make good money on the buy side, because it's a good opportunity, like a good investment's made on the buying. But if you know that you can buy something and you have, like you said, a viable and willing like seller and then another buyer behind where you can transfer the deed rights or sell the deed rights and kind of make that a thing that's interesting. But rarely ever do I see someone who's interested in the wholesaling space in real estate and only that. Like almost everyone I feel like is interested in maybe a flavor of commercial real estate.
That's smart.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of like traditional residential real estate, representing buyers and sellers, so on and so forth. So you mentioned that you quit your job, you got into it, you feel like you failed at first because you didn't know how to run a business. When did the switch flip?
When it had to, when we didn't have any money and all of our credit cards were maxed out and I had cashed out our 401k because I was not giving up on this. So yeah, I could talk for a long time about the things I've learned through that failure. But suffice it to say, didn't know how to run an operation like that, and it took about 6 months for us, like, for everything to be gone. So a little bit of savings. We had sold our house. We were planning on taking that money and buying like a other great real estate thing you can do called house hacking. You can buy, duplex or quadplex, up to 5 units and just live there and then rent it out. So we were going to do that too.
With multiple children.
With 2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, my wife shocked me and was like, hey, if that's part of the path to get to, spend our time how we want to, then let's do it. So burned through that money. Cashed out 401k, and I'm just like, we got to do is close a few deals. You would have freaked out
your former self if you could tell yourself 2 years prior, this is what you would be doing.
Yeah, in some ways, yes. And then in other ways, I've always kind of had the propensity to
you awoke the beast.
Risk a little bit too much. Anyway. So yeah, it's not working out. I one of the distractions was I picked up a rental property actually. So I spent a few weeks just working on getting this rental property ready and getting it rented out. So that was like a minor success. But because we had lost so much money, I'd end up not even be able to keep that after a year or so. So that was a distraction and a kind of minor win. So money's gone. I gotta figure out something to pay the bills. So my boss from the engineering job said, "Hey, you've got an open door if you need to come back. I hope you crush it, but if you need to, just like call me." So I did, and that had changed.
What do you mean?
They didn't have like an opening. The business was kind of slowing down.
How much time had elapsed?
6 months.
Really?
So yeah.
That's not that long.
Yeah. Could be other things too, but
when you called, were you kind of feeling it out, or did you feel like you actually
I was
really
like, I
needed
need to tell me what to do.
Oh, you're ready to mail it in?
Tell me what to do. I need to make some money for my family.
Wow.
And so for probably multiple reasons, it wasn't going to happen, but I just began furiously applying for engineering jobs.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, at some point you don't get to. You just do what you got to do. You don't get to do the thing you want to do. So I was at that point.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and I was so in interviews. I was just too honest. That when people, one of the question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I would stupidly say, I want to have my own business. I want to be in real estate. And so who's going to hire someone for an entry-level engineering position if the correct answer is working for you forever? And yeah, I was like, I want to be off running my own business. And I wouldn't hire someone that was going to say that, that I'm not planning on working with you in the very near future. So yeah, that's being naive and too honest maybe, but, couldn't get a job. So I went back to doing what I did in college, which was opening a Starbucks, opening for a Starbucks. So it just picked up some hours as a barista. I would open a store, I think in Irondale at like 4:30 in the morning and work there until like 9 or 9:30. And then I would go do shipped shopping as a shopper until 6 or 7 p.m. And I would do that every day to be able to pay our bills. And, what happened was in the process of applying for all these jobs, I was like, you know what? I may be going back to corporate America, but I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to accomplish one thing that can still put a stake in the ground, and I'm going to keep going in this world. So I did. I got my real estate license, but couldn't get a engineering job again, just because I wasn't a good entry level opportunity for someone anymore. And so that was how I realized, I guess I'm a realtor. And that's literally how it happened. So I'm opening a Starbucks. I'm ship shopping for the rest of the day, and I'm trying to make the real estate calls in between, like in the car. In every moment I can, I'm trying to get into the real estate sales business.
Like nurturing your base kind of a thing? Like trying to establish your base
I
of
was
buyers
with
and
Keller
sellers?
Williams, and so they teach you like the basics, the most proven basics, which is just focus on how many conversations you can have every day.
I see.
And so that's like step one. So I'm just trying to do step one in every tiny gap in those days. So it was painful and terrible. I think in my first year first 6 months of having my license, I sold one house, which was a total fixer-upper in my neighborhood, to an investor, like a $50,000 sale. And so did not have an impressive first year at all. But I eventually...
but that snowball was getting big. Because it sounds like you're putting in the hours.
Yeah.
To seed the garden well.
Yeah. To some extent, yeah. There were seeds being sown, and it was just like, can you hold on? Can you keep your license the following year and see the result of the seeds that you have no idea if anything's happening there. So
I know the wonder can be, I don't know, degrading a little bit. Like you're like, oh,
there's a big trust aspect of it. Like, am I doing the right thing? Because I'm not seeing the results yet.
Exactly.
And you have to choose to believe the people you heard say this is the right thing to do. And hopefully you're also looking at like a track record and the results.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is you're kind of waiting on the results to establish that track record, to understand what works and what doesn't, because you don't really know if it's working yet, because not enough time has transpired.
Yeah.
That is a very awkward place to be in. Exciting, but a little bit strange.
Yeah, it is exciting.
So when did you feel like, okay, this has some legs?
Yeah.
We could keep working with this.
Yeah. So, as a really funny story, crazy, it's a God story, but I'm driving and doing a ship delivery, and I get a call from no one I know. I'll shout him out. His name's Sam Hagman, and he's like, "Hey, is this James?" I'm like, yeah. How can I help? This is James Rodgers with Keller Williams. How are you doing? And he's like, "Yeah, what are you up to? Like, what are you doing? I've got a property that I may need to sell, and what are you up to?" And like, it took me a lot of like a few questions to figure out what in the world why he was calling me.
Yeah, like, what are you up to?
So, yeah, exactly. So he got a note from a little letter in the mail from me, a postcard from me, when I was doing wholesaling like a year ago. And what I did was I would drive around town every day and just write down a list of like 50 properties that obviously were not taken care of. And then I'd get home and I'd write a physical note to each of those people, to their owner mailing address, and send them out in the mail. Like hundreds and hundreds. It's going to work a lot better
than an offshore phone call. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he had gotten one of those, stuck it in the sun visor of his car, and just went about life. And like 9 or 12 months later, he pulled it out and just called me. And the reason why it's significant is once he heard who I was, what I was up to, how hard I was trying to make it, I guess we ended up talking about like what was really going on in my life. And he was like, "I'm going to connect you with a friend of mine who is starting a brokerage. And him and his partner, they have a big investment portfolio, and they're trying to launch a retail arm of their brokerage to serve retail clients. And I think y'all should talk." So I simply called his friend. His name's David Dutton. He's still out there selling real estate right now. He was my first real broker, and met him and learned what they were trying to do. And they were like, "Yeah, you're definitely the right guy to like, you got the investment hustle background, but you're also trying to be a realtor. So let's do this." They paid me basically like a commission advance, like a salary that I paid back when I had closings. And so that allowed me to stop doing ship shopping, stop opening a Starbucks, and just do real estate. And so I worked with them for 6 months, and like you said, like, finally got my legs underneath me. Dug herself out of the financial pit that we were in, and I was doing real estate full time. So that was what really got me into the business, like all day, every day.
Wow, a friendly neighbor just decided to call you when the note fell out of his visor and onto his lap.
It's funny because, that's
good thing you had the same number.
For real, yeah. I'll never change my phone number ever.
That's wild.
It's funny because it's kind of Providence.
Does he know?
Also, I've told him. Okay. I've told him. I'm listing a house for him right now.
Wow.
He's an investor in Philadelphia and Birmingham. He buys small multifamily and commercial properties.
Okay.
So yeah, I've told him. I was saying it's funny because that's kind of providential.
Yeah.
But also, a key ingredient was like some refuse to give up hustle, So
yeah, that grit factor.
That one of those cards that I put out without ever knowing if it would do anything. And and simply still being in the business and being able to take a phone call like that, those are the ingredients. And then definitely some providence that led to me being able to keep going forward. So
very interesting.
So that's a fun story. And then from there, for multiple reasons, I went actually back to Keller Williams and then was just off to the races.
And you've been there ever since,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. So that was 2018. And then soon after that, I partnered up with Brian Kelleher, who's an awesome realtor. Joined his team and just helped with his business and working with a lot of his overflow clients and helping him build his brand and learning from him and watching him. And that guy changed my life a lot. Was just a great role model, a great person. And so working with him for 2 years was crucial for me. So
did that kind of help you build what would become the foundation of doing something similar yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So he's a believer in just following proven models. And I am too. I mean, that's kind of what KW preaches is there's success leaves clues. You don't need to reinvent any wheel ever because whatever size, like however big you want your life to be, there are people doing that right now and you can learn what they did to do it. So you can totally reinvent the wheel if you want to, or you could take the shorter, less painful path of finding the model to follow and just doing it. So
understanding where to be efficient. I mean, everybody does want to crack the next code a little bit.
Yeah.
And there are some very, very positive benefits of ingenuity.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like if what you're taking a chance on is not delivering the results or giving you the data that you're otherwise trying to capture, sometimes you have to realize that, maybe I'm overcomplicating things. Maybe I'm taking it somewhere where it isn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like you see that a lot in a space where there's a little bit of a B to C flavor, right? Where you have someone of a business capacity talking to a frequent or revolving door kind of style customer base. And it's interesting. Like I see people relate to various customers and clients in all kinds of ways that frequently surprise me. And I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that you guys were looking at opportunities for 3 years. I'm surprised that this guy had a note in his visor and it fell onto his lap in his car and he decided to call you to basically throw you a bone because he respected the fact that you wrote a handwritten note.
Totally. Yeah.
And so there's some cool stuff. I mean, going back to proven models and success leaves clues. I mean, who can argue against the power of a handwritten note? That's something that I learned kind of early too.
So
it's like,
so
wow.
unimpressive, like so not sexy or, exciting.
But it means something.
Yeah, there's a lot of value there.
I mean, I like it. I like it when somebody writes me a note. I'm like, wow, they took the time to write me a note.
Yeah. How many notes do you get per year?
Yeah.
Handwritten notes in the mail. I don't think I got one this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's rare when you get something, but it does always offer a flavor of strong intention, like deliberate behavior. It feels like gratitude. Like if it's more of like a thank you style, it feels like big gratitude. I love that. So
I have one thing you made me think about is just thinking more about good old Brian Keller, and models like Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams. One of my favorite quotes I heard him say recently was that until your business is boring, you're not making as much money as you could.
Until your business is boring.
Yeah.
I get it.
Or unless your business is boring. So the idea there is once you've established the right models and systems and you've been consistent in them long enough to where the days are kind of mundane, you're just chasing exciting things and you're trying a new strategy every month or every year and engaging and embracing that, just being consistent and doing the right thing over and over and over again, that's where the real success is. And as a small business owner, it's so exciting to try something new and learn something new and implement something new. And you know,
you're going to lose enthusiasm for that though.
Yeah.
Once it stops paying.
Yeah, totally. So in terms of what kind of excitement you want, like I would rather have a boring, consistent kind of routine, maybe even mundane business in terms of not doing new and exciting stuff all the time, and have an exciting life with my family and serving people to an exciting extent and investing in ministries and going on trips with my family. Like I want that kind of excitement.
Yes.
I don't want the kind of excitement I used to have, which is like, oh, I'm going to pay the bills every month. So
yeah, it is certainly exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, but it comes with a lot of negative side effects.
Yeah. So I just want to
Interesting.
What were you thinking?
Interesting. So through all of this, because at the beginning, you're just trying to capture so many different deals with the hope that enough of them stick for you to make ends meet and to establish your career path. Once you get a lot of transactions under your belt, once you learn and you have that knowledge base, once you have the experience, then you can start thinking about how you want to build your brand. You know, and I feel like what you have described in your progression, you've probably thought more and more and more as you've moved up the business, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you started thinking a bit more freely about how you want to build your brand and the culture between you and your clients and the climate that you want to perpetuate. So what is it that now, after learning all of that, all of your experiences combined, when you talk to somebody new, somebody that you could perhaps represent as a real estate agent, how do you want them to feel and what do you want them to take away from the jump?
Yeah. That I care about that so much. Like it's number one, how you make people feel. Because in all of this struggling and striving and giving, you know, all of your effort into what appears to be just a business, you're like, how you either find a lot of purpose there or you just, I don't know, become a calloused, angry person. Yeah. So thankfully I really found some purpose there because you're working with people in one of the most significant times of their life with probably their largest investment ever. And they say to not mess with people's family, home, or money. And as realtors, we have our hands all over all three of those things.
Yes.
So you're with people in that moment. And so you have a really big opportunity to show someone how valuable they are. And not just help them accomplish something, but give them an experience. And so my number one goal with my sales business became, you know, given my background and what's important to me and what I want to do in the world and give to people, is my number one goal is to serve people in such a way that they come away from the experience understanding even just a little bit more how valuable they are as an individual person. That's possible. You know, you can help someone sell a property for a ton of money, more than they ever expect, or you can help someone get an incredible deal or maybe begin to do real estate investing, but you can do it in such a way that they're like, that was great, but I hope I don't have to do a real estate transaction in a long time. It was so painful, stressed out, like, and just glad it's over.
Yeah.
Like, or they can have an experience that was like, these people listened to me, they saw me where I was at, they served me to such, I can't believe that they talked to me the way that they did whatever it took. Like, they made me feel so important. Like, I've had some people express that, like, they've never been treated that way, to that high of a level of care and just respect.
Yeah, more of a human, less of a customer.
So that's, yeah, totally. So that's number one goal, is to serve people in such a way that they get even a little bit more understanding of how valuable they are as a human being. And then, of course, to accomplish their real estate goals. But,
yeah.
So I guess that's the brand. The goal, the battle became, how do you communicate that in a brand? Because I feel like in some ways that's also a cliche realtor thing to say.
Well, it's beyond real estate, I think. Mm-hmm. So the hard part is it's not so easy to lead with. It works a little bit better when you receive a referral or a connection that's word of mouth or something like that. If you are part of a transaction, part of an experience rather, representing a buyer or a seller, and you treat them with such care and respect that they have a really good feeling and a really good memory attached to that feeling, and they recommend you to somebody else because they like the idea of somebody that they recommend delivering that same experience to somebody that they care about, because they wouldn't be talking about it to somebody if they didn't care about that person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's awesome, because I had heard early in my career that one of the best things you could do to give you the most marketing punch, like the best form of marketing, is just doing a really good job on any one deal. And it is crazy. Like I've been on both ends of the spectrum. Like, okay, that one went really well. Wow. They had amazing things to say. That one went really horribly. Wow. They have not so great things to say. And then of course, everything in between. And I find it really fascinating that people have such a memory lock on their emotions, right? And how they feel. But at the end of the day, you and how you make a customer feel, that doesn't really matter if the opportunity isn't there and the opportunity is attached to their real estate goals. It's like, if I may bring it all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, it's like, look, why would you be an engineer? Because I need a stable job to support my family and make sure that we have money to pay our bills and to eat food and to live in our home, and for my wife to be able to freely raise our children. That's why. But I can be an encourager, a person of Christian influence. I can be a disciple and all of those things, and a caretaker, while still being an engineer, because it's how I do what I do. And real estate is like, well, you could buy and sell real estate, or even represent buyers and sellers, and not care at all about a human being.
Yes.
Like,
A lot
easy.
Of them do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But if you can make a client feel heard, and that's kind of like what I'm gathering, like what I'm taking away from your comments so far, is you make people feel like they are heard because you're intentionally and actively listening to them.
Yeah. And it makes me think, like, as you're saying all that, like I think to a big extent, your brand is almost like the stories that follow you. So you talked about the best thing you can do for your brand just being kill it in a single transaction. As that compounds, like, that becomes your brand, is how people think about you and the stories that follow you. So, it's never a mistake to give all of your effort into the person that's right in front of you. Like, that's never a mistake, to just the person that is with you, to really give them everything you possibly have. And like, there's a lady in the Christian world that has influenced me and my wife a lot, Heidi Baker, and that's one of her mantras, is to stop for the one. That a single person is worth everything you have to give. So,
because you can tell, like, you can tell when someone's locked in. You can tell when someone's not.
Yeah, you can tell when they're waiting to talk to the other 10 people they have to talk to.
Yeah, or if they're distracted. And I find myself in this trap all the time.
Yes,
right, where
I do too.
I'm like, I'm phasing out. Like, I'm distracted because of other things that I might be even subconsciously prioritizing. And it's also always work induced.
Or
you know what I mean?
Important
yeah,
things.
like professional tasks that I have to get done that are certainly getting in my way. But when you as anyone, I mean, I'm not talking about just as a customer, having representation from a business professional, when you feel like people are intentional about listening to you, I mean, it feels good. It feels good, and it also feels good to feel like you're delivering that for somebody else.
Yep.
And sometimes you can feel it when you're not.
Yep.
Which is kind of uncomfortable too.
Yep.
So, I mean, all right. So let me work this in a different way. In the current market, right? You're hearing a lot of similar sentiments across a lot of customers, clients, would-be clients, that are talking about the complications over money, things being tight, people complaining about home prices, people complaining about insurance, people complaining about mortgage rates, people complaining about the election, people complaining about so many different things that they feel like are an economic hindrance to their home ownership goals, right? Whether that's a seller feeling like they're not going to get top dollar, whether that is a buyer feeling like they can't afford where they need or want to live. And so what are you seeing that's common with a lot of people that you are representing currently or in recent history? And how do you navigate those on behalf of your clientele?
Well, it's funny, as the longer you're in a particular business, you hear challenges and fears and frustrations, and you think that they're so novel. But the longer you're in it, you're like, oh, I heard this. Like, I talked to someone yesterday who was like, I don't know if I'm going to buy this house because of the current interest rate. And the first question is, well, what interest rate are you waiting for? Like, is there a number? Because there's not. And also, I heard this 3 years ago. Like, I heard someone saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy because I'm hoping that rates go down. So,
Yeah, people don't understand the market moves, or it could have been a dinner time conversation.
Yeah.
Or it could be just needs based. Like they literally just can't do it.
And
unless
also,
something changes.
the challenge is they don't change a ton. Like, it's kind of that concept of like, there's nothing new under the sun. So at all the different parts of the market cycle, there's sellers who have these challenges and there's buyers that have these challenges. And so it's like what you are afraid of, a lot of other people have been afraid of. And if it really matters to you to get into the home that your family needs, we'll find a way to do that. And so I think at every phase of the stage of the market cycle, it is helping someone overcome the doubt of, can I really do this?
Well, you're kind of dosing them with a little bit of reality.
Totally.
You'd be like, hey, your concerns are real, but they're also real for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And it's nothing that we can't overcome through, it'll take this or that strategy. But here's a path we can chart.
It sounds like a consultation with a doctor and a patient. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, these are your concerns. I understand your concerns. Other patients have these same concerns. Here's how we overcome these concerns. Yeah. It feels very much like that.
But you always start by really, if you're present and grounded and like you're okay, you've taken care of yourself, you're not stressed out and freaking out for a lot of different reasons, you can be present and you can put yourself in their life.
Yep.
And try to experience what they are so that you can talk to them the way they need to be talked to and listened to and served in whatever they're going through. So yeah, it's hard to not to sidestep your question, but like all the situations are so very different.
They are, man.
So when you ask like what am I kind of seeing consistently right now, not anything crazy different than I was like 5 years ago. So
yeah,
I mean, one of the things,
which is telling, because you might be numb to it, but the fact that you hear it so much and that you are numb to it because people have talked about it so much is that, and perhaps numb is not the right word, but you're
not fazed by it.
Yeah, you're not fazed by it. You're desensitized in such a way where you can recognize it. Like you hear that it is a problem for them, but it doesn't shock you in the same way. It doesn't hold the same weight, perhaps. Yep. And you only feel that way because you've heard it so many times. But the fact that you feel that way because you've heard it so many times is because it is a fresh concern enough in each new customer or client's mind that they feel like they need to bring it up to you. Because it's like priority one for the first person who says it, priority one for the second person, priority one for the third person. Yeah. And you're like, wow, this is a recurring theme. Everyone is concerned about this. But everyone who does eventually closes amidst the concern.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to think of like a unique thing right now. A reoccurring conversation right now is, a lot of people who bought their house 2019 to 2022 and they have a 3 or 4% mortgage rate, maybe even 2.5% mortgage rate. And they're like, we do want to sell our house and buy a house, but we're going to be more than doubling our interest rate. And I just can't accept that. Like I can't get rid of this mortgage. Like I feel like I can't let go of it.
Housing Wire calls that dying in place.
Yeah. So
people not wanting to let go, so they're just not going to make any moves.
Sure. Well, at some point, with some people, what you want out of life becomes more important than the number on your mortgage.
That was really government inspired.
Artificially low. So, Yeah. So whenever either the pain point or the good thing that you want in the future becomes more important than just the interest rate on your mortgage, then you become willing to consider whatever strategy is needed to
Yeah.
get forward in life. So more and more people, as time goes on, are, making that mental jump to, all right, I'm going to let go of what I thought was most important, and we're going to do the next thing in life. So
I do find it fascinating when people attribute their limitations seemingly exclusively to the things that they cannot control. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I'm going to wait for house prices to come down.
Mm-hmm.
The next question that a lot of people want to ask is, okay, what does that mean for you if they don't?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, are you not wanting to buy? Because it could make sense for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not buying could
Yeah.
make sense for the right person.
Yes.
But I just find that to be really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would the conversation not be, hey, the things I can't control, what do they look like on the ground right now? Mm-hmm. And then what can I do to reach this goal? Mm-hmm. Like an understanding of the factor, the constants available, or the uncontrollable variable rather, the controllable variable, the true variable, and then what it is that you want to get to. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's really, really interesting how much people will spend a lot of time talking about the things that they want more than the path to get there.
Yeah. Well,
and I don't always understand why. And a lot of people would ask something like, why seek professional help in various circumstances? Like, why would somebody need to consult a doctor? Why would somebody need an attorney for representation? Mm-hmm. Why does somebody need to consult a real estate agent when considering buying or selling property? And I can't help but think that it's because a lot of people just haven't gone through enough of the experiences that you and I are talking about in this conversation to understand what some of those limitations, roadblocks, or mm-hmm. perhaps even challenges are going to be. And so you have a bit of like a warner/confidant who can help guide you amidst and help protect you against what may become a thing, mm-hmm. even if it never does.
Yeah. And also, like, when it becomes important enough, you stop focusing on the things you can't control. And you may need someone to help you do that, but you focus on the things you can control. So if it's like, if we kind of want to buy a new house, or we kind of want to sell this property that we inherited,
if the conditions are right,
but
we'll do this.
But you use the things you can't control as like a buffer from how much to cover up how much you're really not super motivated to do it. So if buying,
that's a really
buying your
interesting
first house, if it's not
concept.
that important to you, you'll be like, yeah, I just need to wait for rates to go down. Or yeah, I just heard that the real estate market is like, there's a bubble right now. These things, like, if it's not that important, you can there's a lot of things available for you to say like that. But if it does become really, really important, those things become, they get put in their place. So yeah.
I like that. That was a good nugget. And it is an interesting psychological concept, right? Like, an over focus on uncontrollable factors
mm-hmm. Yeah.
might just be a disguise for how
Can be, yeah.
little you are motivated.
Yeah.
Might be.
Yeah.
That's
but there's also
very interesting.
There's also people who, I think because life has run them down so much, that you I don't think anybody chooses to have a victim mentality, but you can, and that will also make you see only those things that you can't control, and oftentimes you need like a good friend, or a good advisor, or someone to just kind of snap you out of it and help you see like, I don't have to just look at those things, like someone to like pull you out of the kind of the victim mentality.
How often do you describe the concept of shared success? Like, hey, like, I don't win if you don't win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So of course I want you to achieve.
Yeah.
I don't get anything out of you not achieving your goals.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do anything for me professionally.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do anything for my business.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make me feel good. So why would I not help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that part of this industry, that I only win if you win. because we're not like just strictly salespeople. Like if I have a business selling a product, like as long as you buy it, like I have succeeded,
Yeah.
regardless of the consequences. And so because your reputation and the stories that follow you matter so much, like I'm really only going to win if the people I work with win. And that goes with the people you partner with your lender and your inspector and all the different things. So,
Yeah. It's not like you're just selling a product with no return policy.
Yeah.
It's like there's
they,
not
they
there's
got
not
my
a clear
number for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a relationship. And if something, not good went down while they were working with me, like I'm not just gone forever. Like plan on knowing each other forever. So,
I think that's what makes people feel comfortable, is that you're reachable. Mm-hmm. You're not a ghost.
Yeah.
And when they feel like someone is reachable and cares about their reputation, then they're going to deliver on what you need, and they're going to take care of you. Mm-hmm. And it all just kind of comes back and falls in on itself and in a way that ideally promotes better service than a different scenario. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like a lot of the things that you shared. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us more about what you expect to see first quarter of next year, and a couple other things that are hot on your mind, and maybe some of the things that you would want a potential buyer or seller to understand going into the near future in the market.
Oh man. In terms of, I don't, this might be a boring answer, but I don't think there's going to be any dramatic, super exciting changes to the real estate market at the beginning of next year. There's always the factor of where we're at right now, post-election. There's all the people who have been stepping out of the market and nervous to do anything because they don't know what's going to happen and how it's going to affect our economy and their local market. And so I think as we as everybody sees, as they do every 4 years, that everything's going to be okay. And there's a lot of people who were nervous for a second who are going to lose that nervousness and just go back to normal life and normal business. So that's going to be happening over the next few months. And that'll be buyers and sellers. And then, one of the things that's happening right now is we got a long path to get back to a balanced market, but as more and more time goes by, like buyers have more and more leverage when they're talking to sellers. And a lot of buyers still haven't realized that, and a lot of buyers' agents still haven't realized that oh, we're going to see this house and the buyer is in love with it. You don't have to just pull out all the stops and make a insane offer. Like you probably have, unless you're legitimately up against 3 to 5 other buyers making an offer, like you probably have a decent amount of leverage to negotiate with that seller. And so that's a new environment for a lot of agents and probably for a lot of buyers. So oftentimes I'll have a listing and it's been on the market for a week or less, and a buyer comes to see it and they love it and they're like, "Are you working anything right now? Because we're about to get you an offer." And I'm like, "No, I'm not working anything right now." And they're like, "Okay, well, please don't accept anything until we send you this offer tonight." And they like offer above list price. They do their inspection beforehand. All the strategies.
They're creating competition.
All the strategies that we've done over the previous years, and they don't even know that they're the only person who's come to see the house.
Well, you kind of alluded to it in the story that you just shared, because you said we're not working on anything else right now.
In terms of like, there's no offers coming in right now, but they'll ask like, "What's your activity been like?" And I'm representing the seller, so I'm going to say, "Well, it's looking pretty good right now."
Yeah.
Because you came to look at the house today.
Yeah.
But they don't even. Oftentimes,
it is funny. They're acting as if the competition is fierce. Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it is still.
I love having conversations,
but not always,
with buyers too, and we'll be talking about something as if there's a healthy amount of competition. And there have been a couple of cases where I'm like, well, hang on, why are they asking this? Like, why is the other side asking this? Are you the only offer on the table? Like, what's your negotiation power? What's your leverage, so to speak? And they're like, well, we're definitely the only one. And I was like, well, what? Communicate that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you guys communicate to each other
Yeah.
about that and understand, like, you need each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now you're working
Yeah.
together and now you're in a compromising phase
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah.
Because you need to make sure that you both need each other to commence the deal, not to hoodwink each other and go back and forth and try to get a little bit more from the either side.
Well, for a long time, sellers were like, I don't need you. If you want to back out, I've got 5 other people ready to pay more than you.
Right.
So they didn't have that mentality of
Right.
like, you do whatever I say.
Yeah,
and that's not the case.
But like
that's
a
not the
deal
case
can
anymore.
go once you turn the page from what feels like me versus you to now let's collaborate and close this
Yeah.
together. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right
That's
now,
really
now
good.
we know that
Yes.
we're latched
Yes.
and people on the same page, and
Yeah.
we want to get there.
Yeah.
And when the buyers and sellers can be like that, of course, the listing agent and the selling agent can be like that a little bit
Yeah.
more, and it just ends up feeling a heck of a lot better.
Yeah. It kind of seems obvious that once you put a contract together, like we have an agreement, and let's just work on closing this agreement.
I do think that people don't often respect the strength that a contract is supposed to hold,
Yeah.
the commitment that a contract is supposed to,
Right.
to hold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree
Interesting.
with that. Yeah.
This is cool. I like this a lot. I feel like I learned a lot from talking to you. I feel like anyone listening to this is going to walk away with at least one interesting thought from some of the stuff that you shared and the experience that you put forth in this conversation. So, and you're a busy guy. I know that you're on your way to other appointments and other business endeavors that you've got throughout the day and the week. So thank you so much for just taking the time out to be intentional with the conversation.
Yep.
And to be present and talk about your story a little bit, because people love stories. Like, everybody has something that they would like to share. And we kind of gravitate and understand that a heck of a lot better when we're trying to digest new knowledge. So how do people get in contact with you, by the way, if somebody wants to reach out to
Yeah,
you?
you can just Google James Rodgers.
With a D, right?
With a D, yes. Had a friend from high school growing up who was ROG, and he said, I have a D because I make more money. And I hesitate to say that because it's super prideful to say.
That's funny.
Yeah, Rodgers with a D. James Rodgers. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Google, apparently. I had 2 people call me yesterday. 2 different people call me that they said they found me on Google, which was cool. Because I'm not like trying
it's
to
working.
build a big Google business.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
That's awesome. So James Rodgers with Keller Williams
In Homewood.
Homewood.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you, man.
Heck yeah. We'll talk soon.
All right.